You're listening to Reignite, a podcast where two friends struggle to find romance.
Yeah, I know. This might be the first playthrough in a bajillion playthroughs where I don't have a specific romantic interest as we head towards the end of the game.
So in this section of the game, we head over to Ilos, where we make some startling discoveries about what happened to the Protheans before we make our way to the very, next to last moment, the penultimate showdown, where we have to drive really fast.
Yeah, this section is more action and less narrative development, which, as we get towards the end of the game, just seems to be the constant. That said, there's a ton of exposition in the first 2/3 of the game, so it makes sense that it would ramp up like this.
So I figured out why I did not have the conversation with Joker that you talked about.
Uh-huh.
It's because that's not part of the cutscene. That's an extra bit.
Oh,
that
after
you
you
talk
talked
to
to him.
Joker. So you went and you talked to Joker.
Oh, I didn't remember doing that, but I guess I did.
Because when I went to do my check-ins, I talked to Joker, and he said exactly what you said. And I was just like, wait a minute.
I guess I did do the check-in. I didn't remember, but also you're already in the cockpit at that point, so I must have talked to him before I turned the game off.
Yeah. Which is weird because I saved as soon as I could, and when I opened the game, I was at the galaxy map. So, I don't know.
I have no idea.
I have no idea. Check-ins didn't go super constructively, I guess the word is.
Yeah, at this point, a lot of the crew and your teammates have pre-generated one-sentence answers, except for a few.
Yeah.
Caden, Rex, and Garrus will all talk to you. So I'm assuming Ashley will as well. But Liara, Chakwas, Presley, Adams, Tali all kind of just give you a one-liner about the situation.
Yeah. Everybody is, appalled and shocked and excited that you stole the Normandy.
Yeah, Presley is the liveliest he's been pretty much since the get when you do that stuff, which I think is very funny.
So my most emotional moment was with Rex because he has this very firm belief in you. When you started with him, he didn't even believe in himself, really.
Yeah.
So I got very emotional. He was so, I'm going to say this word wrong because this is one of those words that I've always read and never heard out loud. Nihilistic?
Nihilistic is correct.
Okay, great. He was so nihilistic when you started, but now you give him hope.
Yeah.
And I was very emotional.
I didn't get that emotional, but I did get a sense of that. He definitely has a sense of purpose now because of you, which is good to see. There's a lot of worry that Saren's going to get away, but you reassure your crew. Still, no one has checked in with how you're doing, though, at this point.
Nobody really cares about your feelings.
To be fair, though, Shepard operates under a very strong superhero complex, and so I think because you project that I can do anything attitude, people don't always think to check in with you.
I guess. Garrus raises a very salient point to Paragon Shep. We've talked so much about following the rules, but now we break them. We steal a ship and go against what the council tells us to do. So I feel that the point we're making is when your back is against the wall, the rules don't really matter anymore. What matters is your integrity.
Yeah.
And the council has basically put your integrity in jeopardy.
Yeah.
And they're not doing the right thing, even though that is... It's their ruling. It's not the right thing. Justice and the law are not necessarily the same.
Correct.
So I think it's important that you recognize when it's time to break the rules, because you're trying to do your best to be a good person, but sometimes being a good person means that you break some rules.
Right. Doing the right thing doesn't always mean following the rules.
Yeah. It's a very Gryffindor thing.
Very. But yeah, and then you can check in with Tali, who you get a little bit of chat with. I thought it was very funny that she mentions you guys being fugitives and her concern. You go, well, your dad's like an important guy. He can help us, right? And she goes, no, he'd probably want to kill you more because you stole a ship and that's a big law breaking.
I didn't have that conversation with her because I was just like,
Yeah, if you talk to her about, well, at least your dad can help us, she launches into how stealing a ship in the flotilla is the highest offense of lawbreaking.
Yeah.
And he'd probably want to kill us more than anyone.
That's pretty bad.
And then you go, oh, well, okay.
Whoops.
Yeah. Well, you pretty much don't get any comfort in that.
Whoops-a-doodle.
Yeah, so the check-ins here are pretty brief. If you have a romantic partner, I think you can get a little more out of them.
Not in the check-ins.
Not
really.
in the check-ins.
Yeah, there's like nothing.
But yeah, like Kaden, it's very brief. Like you can't even progress conversation for me.
Same with Ashley.
Like he just repeats that everyone has your back.
Yeah.
Which is fine. It's just funny at this point in the game, after all of the check-ins that you do and all the times and all of the branching dialogue paths here rather. Paths. You don't really get much here. I do like, though, that at least the Normandy crew, the core crew, say different things now.
Yeah.
Like, they're one-liners, but at least it's something different. They're not repeating the same nonsense.
Yeah. Which, to me, says that they could have easily have done this when your teammate died.
No, yeah, they could. Like I said, while we're taking it as narrative because that's how we have to take it, it's definitely more gameplay and coding than narrative, I think, is why that happened. I think they just didn't program that. Because when we get to the second game, they react to almost everything, and you can go way deeper with all of the crew as well.
I have a lot of opinions about their laziness in this game, which we will get to momentarily.
Again, though, it's easy for us to say laziness a decade later, and with the advanced technology.
We'll get to it.
Okay.
We will. Because the things that I'm referring to are things that they could have easily done.
Fair enough.
Well, I say easily, but they could have done.
Right.
So you do have an opportunity to finish off your side quests.
Yes.
You don't have to go straight to Ilos.
So I did that. I did some of the DLC. I say some because some of it was just arduous and I didn't bother. But that was really it. I didn't really do a lot of the minor side missions. Also because I realized a lot of the ones I had left hanging were on Citadel, which I can do nothing about now.
Yeah.
But I did. We'll talk about in depth this later. But I did bring down the Bring Down the Sky DLC, which focuses around the Batarians. And so I did that. I tried to do Pinnacle Station and got frustrated. You completed that. And again, we'll dive into that deeper on our DLC episode, which will probably follow our final episode and our final thoughts episode.
Yeah. So when you go to Ilos, you get this cutscene. I think for you, nothing happened in your cutscene.
The going towards Ilos cutscene?
Yeah.
I mean, define nothing. There was a lot of heated argument. And
No. I mean, okay, so I'm sorry. There's miscommunication here. There's a moment where Shepard is in the captain's quarters.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't get that at all. No captain quarters.
So you didn't have the.
Nope.
You weren't even sitting there by yourself.
Nope.
Okay.
Nothing.
So I had a scene in the captain's quarters where Liara came to me to tell me, like, we could die. Like, we should continue our relationship. And I very much felt like this is not the time. I lost someone that I cared about, and I have a lot going on in my head. And, like, sleeping with you is not going to solve that. And you're also still, like, kind of a baby in my eyes. So I'm not there yet with you. There was no option for us to, like, sit and be comfortable with each other.
Yeah.
And, like, for me to get comfort in a different way.
It's either accept or decline.
Yeah, which was very frustrating because in a situation like that, sex isn't necessarily the answer here. Like,
right.
Maybe I want a different form of intimacy, which was not offered to me. And maybe my relationship with Liara could have grown if my options were sex or no sex. Like, if I had a different option, then maybe that relationship could have gone somewhere.
Yeah.
But given only those two options, I really didn't want to sleep with her, so...
You didn't.
I didn't, so that relationship just completely kaput.
Yeah, I put the kibosh on that, as I said in the previous episode. So yeah. I didn't even get that cutscene at all, because you can't pursue Kaden in the first game, and
right.
Ashley I had begun to pursue before she died, and she's dead.
Yeah.
So, no cutscene.
Yeah. So I felt really bad because I've been kind of not nice to Liara. I feel bad about it because she's like, let's do this. And I'm like, this is not the appropriate time for this to happen.
She's very impulsive. She
guess.
is actually not unlike Garrus, I think, but from a different side. Yeah. She's more educated and book smart and, an academic, but she's still very impulsive on next steps. Yeah.
She gets carried away. That's what it is. Because there's a moment later, I brought her with me to Ilos because it's all Prothean stuff, and I figured I need her. And there's a moment where she said, should we continue? Because there's so much we can still learn. And I'm just like, we have stuff to do right now. Come back later if we're still alive. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Things more important than this.
One-track mind.
I felt bad that I had to be like, snap the fuck out of it.
Yeah, I actually had a pretty easy time on Ilos, I think, because I brought two very focused professionals. I brought Caden and Tali. And so Caden, though always sounding confused, was pretty determined. And Tali didn't really have a lot to say, honestly. But yeah, so I didn't have a moment like that where like, oh, we should wait. We should look at this stuff. Because I didn't even bring Liara with me.
Yeah. Before you even land on Ilos, it's the very funny cutscene where whoever your Earth teammate is that's left and Presley get into an argument because they're trying to find the landing zone.
Yeah.
There is no other landing zone!
That's a very good Presley impression.
I love Presley.
No, yeah, this is the most animate I've ever seen Navigator Presley, and really the crew in general. Like, Liara, even though fairly monotone, is still getting, uproarious in this moment, too. Like, everyone's yelling at each other, and Joker at one point just pipes up and goes, hey, I can do it. Shut up. Essentially.
What I like about it is he doesn't even, raise his voice at all. He just goes, I can do it.
Yeah.
And then you ask him, are you sure? I can do it. And that's all you need.
Yeah.
If I were in that moment, I'd be like, okay, great, done.
Yeah. Well, no, that was a very...
Fantastic.
I feel like my Shepherd has grown a lot closer to Joker, and in that moment, especially considering how calm he was, that in that situation showed me that he's more in control, whereas people tend to yell out of panic.
Yeah.
No one yelling in a tense situation like that is actually confident.
Right. Everybody was just so stressed and out of sorts. Joker's cool as a cucumber.
The funny thing, though, is this is our earliest preview of Toasted Marshmallow Caden, because he's, really getting aggressive with Presley. It was very funny.
You're right. We do need a shirt with Caden as a toasted marshmallow.
We do. If anyone out there who draws or animates, if you want to draw a marshmallow version of Caden that's slightly toasted, we will accept that and put it on our website. But yeah, so, of course, after that moment happens, Joker essentially slingshots the Mako right into the face of Saren as he's making way further into the Ilos compound and locking you out, which then allows you to have to dick around that area to try and figure out how to get through a giant door.
Whoever designed this map is bad and should feel bad.
It's funny, I didn't get lost at all. I did pretty well.
My problem was I didn't realize I had to unlock the door because it was not made clear to me that I unlocked the door. And they didn't, no one said, oh, hey, the door's probably unlocked now.
Yeah.
You just have this cutscene where you talk about Protheans for a minute and the Prothean distress beacon.
The AI.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. There's a Prothean distress beacon.
Uh-huh.
And you're the only one that can hear it.
Huh.
And the others are like, I don't understand what this language is. And you tell them, oh, I can understand it. Why?
Oh, no, yeah. But the distress beacon is being voiced by Vigil. That's the first time you meet Vigil, because it's the same voice.
I didn't connect that it was the same voice, but I played it 2 separate days.
Yeah.
So
no, that's your first encounter with Vigil, who's at the beacon, and you identify that you can understand the language that no one else around you can. And then...
But, no. When you, actually talk to Vigil, though, he's speaking English.
Right.
Okay.
Well, but
Sorry.
not the first time.
But not the first time.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't think that it was Vigil, and that's why I thought it was just a random Prothean sending out.
Same voice.
And
so I'm assuming it was Vigil, because also same composition of distorted images.
that brings me to my point about the laziness, because, and we have talked about this a little, RE Batarians, I think. Did we talk about
Probably.
this? So, okay, Vigil. The design that we get is very broken up, distorted image, right?
Right.
Kind of makes sense. It's been 50,000 years.
Right.
I get it. Cool. There are also these statues of Protheans that look kind of tentacly.
Uh-huh.
So they kind of look like octopus faces, almost.
Yeah. Are we positive those are statues of Protheans?
I don't know.
I don't think they are.
I don't know for sure.
I
feel like they're supposed to be.
I think the only reason I think they're not is because in the third game you get a Prothean party member.
I know.
And so I don't think that's meant to be the Protheans. I think that's meant to be art, horrific art, implying or implicating the Reapers, maybe, because they're tentacly faces.
I don't think that's true.
I just don't think they're statues of the Protheans because the Protheans didn't have tentacle faces, to my knowledge, anyway. Unless I'm misinterpreting. I mean, that's another thing about Ilos.
So here's the thing. This is what I think. I think at that time they didn't know what they wanted the Protheans to look like.
Okay.
That's what I think. Because you have that distorted image and it kind of gets them out of having to design a new species that they're not sure that they're going to bring in or not. I think that these statues that we see, as well as the red images that you always get from the beacons, they're very also visually ambiguous. Like, these are very long lines. They look kind of tentacly, but they're not really. We don't really know how many eyes they have. Like, there's nothing clear about them, and they're very ambiguous. And also, the Prothean Empire didn't include just one race.
That's definitely true, yeah.
So that's also a thing.
Well, right. Well, the Prothean Empire didn't include one race, but the Protheans were one race.
The Protheans were one race, but their empire was
You
not.
also have to think about it this way, though. Part of it's not laziness. If you don't know if you're going to get a second game, you're going to design what you can and have to, not what you don't need. And since the Protheans, as a living race, didn't really exist in this timeline, to our knowledge, there was no reason for them to design them if they didn't have to. It saved them time and resources.
I guess. I'm just like, meh about it. Especially when they did the same thing with the Batarians. There's a side mission earlier in the game where you are tracking some Alliance data, and it was relocated into a mine, and when you go, you get trapped in this mine by a Batarian terrorist. And the projection of this terrorist looks very humanish, and it looks just like a guy, and I didn't understand the very first time that I played it that he was supposed to be a Batarian, because I had Burned the Sky at that time, and when you meet Batarians in Burn the Sky, they look vastly different.
I mean, they are fairly humanoid, and a shadow of their head would look human.
You don't understand what I mean, because you, I think, are not remembering the visual.
I mean, I never did that mission, or if I did, I don't remember.
So the visual is human.
Okay.
Yeah. So the only thing that makes it look maybe not human is it's a little more round in the head, and the eyes, you don't get pupils.
Right.
So it created this sense of other, but it still looked like a human.
Okay.
So, and then you meet Batarians who don't look like that at all.
Right.
And I don't know. I wish I err more on the side of take the time to develop rather than rush it out.
And I hear you, but as a non-game developer,
no, I know.
From my experience with the storytelling of this game and the design of certain things, this is an old game that also probably didn't patch out any defects. The port that I'm playing on the PC probably made some quality of life changes because it was ported by another company that wasn't EA or BioWare that helped them get it onto the PC. But in my experience, I find it easier, and I'm not saying you're wrong, I'm just saying I find it's much easier for us to go, well, they could have 10 years later with other games under their belt. But at the time, who knows where they were at?
Yeah. I'm just expressing where I am now.
I got it. Yeah. No, that's fair. I think also the thing is with the Protheans is that the bigger problem that I think fuels your issue is that Ilos is given very little codec entries and very little explanation. Whereas every other planet we've been to and every other race we've encountered has tons of information.
Yeah.
Now, again, that's part of the narrative. We don't know a lot about the Protheans. That's why Liara has the job that she has and is doing the work that she's doing, is because we don't know a lot.
Right.
But it does become frustrating from a player perspective because, especially if you're someone who's reading all the codex and want to know all the information and know all the backstory, Ilos is pretty void of a lot of that.
Yeah. And it was just interesting to have these moments of the broken up imagery.
Yeah.
Because it gave them that way out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my guess is that wasn't always the end goal, but became a resource decision because they got to wherever they got to. But that said, the interactions with Vigil and the interactions with the Prothean tech on Ilos is also very segmented. Like, it's interesting the way they develop it, but the way that you finally encounter Vigil as Vigil and you understand him and know that he's a Prothean AI is because he briefly traps you in a section of a tunnel you're driving in the Mako in.
So he can give you information.
And the narrative storytelling on this planet feels a little ham-fisted.
Yeah.
And I get why. I get because this was a transition point to the final part of the game. And the final part of the game is the key part. But I feel like if this part of the game had been done in a game like 2 or 3, it would have been more streamlined or just felt more natural. It did feel a little segmented here.
Yeah, I don't really like info dumps, and that's what Vigil very much was.
Right.
And it was a chance to stop, and Vigil just handed you all this information about, like, who the Keepers are, what the conduit is, where it leads, what happened with the Reapers. And also, I thought it was really interesting that the way that Vigil was designed to think was very representative of the way we know the Protheans think in general.
Right.
Because Vigil had to make the decision to shut people off and essentially kill Protheans over the years.
So yeah, there's one of the only key narrative and emotional moments on Ilos is when you're finally getting the info dump from Vigil. He talks about how he had to decide whether to keep power on for himself so he could eventually relay this message, or keep the life support on for Protheans who are in the pods that you see in the tunnel you're driving through in the Mako. And you have an opportunity here to react, either appalled or accepting. And of course, my character was fairly appalled.
Yeah. I don't think it was necessarily a choice between, like, him and them. I think the choice was, I only have so much power, and I have to, like, choose which of these people to keep alive for the longest possible.
Well, yeah, it was both, I think, because part of it was the commanders, right? He chose the higher ups over the normies, I guess, or the regular people. And so that was part of it. But I think also part of it was just preserving energy there, because if there's no power in the facility, he doesn't exist. He's an AI. He needs power. Yeah. And my understanding was...
And his job was to warn people.
Right. And so I think he decided, though, as an AI, to prioritize the high-ranking officials over others. And that for me at least, upset Caden very much. Yeah. Because in his mindset, it's like, you can't choose life over power. Like, that's just not how this works. But from Vigil's perspective, it was very different. Because he was hoping for a moment like he's getting right now with you.
Yeah, and this was my moment with Liara, where she wanted to stay and learn as much as possible from Vigil. And I, like, snapped at her, like, are you really thinking about this right now?
We have somewhere to be. We have stuff to do.
And Vigil even says, like, you are right. He is almost there. You should probably go.
Yeah. It's funny, for me, because of the way the dialogue went, he doesn't say that. We say, well, we should get going. Saren might almost be there. And he says, Saren has not gotten to the conduit yet. You do have time. Which is interesting to me that because you snapped at Liara, he agreed with you and was like, you should hurry. Whereas for me, because that dialogue didn't exist, there was urgency, but he didn't go, you should get there.
No. It was more of a, like, you're right.
Right.
Like, he's not there yet, but you can't, like, fucking waste time.
You can't dawdle here.
Yeah, basically. It wasn't like, no, you should leave now. It
Right.
was more of a like, you have a very good point.
Yeah. It's interesting, though, because if I recall correctly, in 3, we do get a callback to Vigil when we learn more firsthand stuff on that planet. Because in the 3rd game, you get a Prothean as a party member. Spoiler alert. And so...
Well, you can.
It's DLC.
Yeah.
But DLC that I think is sort of required. I don't know. We'll get into it when we get to the 3rd game. But the point is, it gets you some perspective through his memory of what things actually looked like on Ilos in its prime, which is interesting post this game, but it clearly wasn't something they were even thinking about in this game.
Yeah. From then you just have to get in your car and drive.
Yeah, so what's really interesting and cool about the final moments on Ilos, though, from an action perspective, is you do some fighting not under pressure, and then you get to a section of the map, there's a cutaway to the Citadel, and it being intercepted and attacked by Lobsterface. Sovereign. Thank you. And I was making lobstery hand motions with my hand for those who couldn't see, which is everybody. But they get attacked by them in the Geth, and like it's the command ship reacting, talking about evacuating Ascension, reacting to the Citadel, trying to get it to close up to protect itself, which it can't. And then, of course, it cuts to Saren teleporting directly inside and starting to attack and invade. And then you cut back to a scene of the Mako at the top of a hill, a 30-second timer, and a small mass relay in front of you. Small, within perspective of what they actually are. It's still pretty freaking huge. Large. And so at this point, you just race for this.
Yeah, and then there's like Geth on either side shooting at you, and you can't even bother with them. You don't have enough
time. Yeah, and also, if you don't move fast enough, you could A, run out of time, or B, be incapacitated by the Geth. Because while you're not attacking, they're still attacking you, and your shields are draining slowly. But as long as you keep moving without stopping, you will get there without issue.
Yeah, Ian said that his friend was playing on a very old laptop, and because it took so long to render, they kept failing the run, and they had to like point the camera down so nothing would render.
Right, and so they could go.
They could just go and make it within the time.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
But it makes for a pretty cool moment, and then of course once you hit that small mass relay, it launches the Mako, and you essentially travel in the Mako through hyperspace directly into the Citadel.
That thing's tough.
And probably one of the coolest moments in the game is a cutscene where Geth are starting to set up and pick at bodies, and then all of a sudden the Mako comes through, jumps, and hits these Geth, destroying them and almost killing you in the process. Yeah. And totally wrecking the Mako.
The Mako really should have stuck around. Could have used it.
Nah, I'm good. I think I'd do better without it.
I think it could have been useful.
So you totally wreck the Mako, you wreck your car, and that's where we stop.
Yeah.
And this leads into the end game. This is the final moments of Mass Effect 1.
Yeah. Which is going to be our next episode, and then after that, we will do the postmortem or the side quest.
Let's do I suppose we should do the end of the game and maybe the side quests, if we can fit them both into one episode.
You think so?
Or I guess not. I guess we'll do the end of the game, the side quest, and then a postmortem, because the postmortem should be on everything, not just the story. So I think end game, DLC,
yeah, because the end game does have like a bit more stuff.
That's true, because you have the after battle stuff that you talk about. Because obviously, if you've been listening this far, the end game is a final battle with Saren.
Yeah.
Duh. But after that, there's story stuff and decisions you make there too. So we'll talk about that in the next episode. Go on to the DLC, which essentially for us will just be Bring Down the Sky and Pinnacle Station. And then after that, we will do a postmortem on all of Mass Effect 1 and talk about what we loved, what we hated, what has changed over time in our opinion of the game. Mostly me, it'll be talking about how much of the game I've forgotten. Or it could be because I'm playing it on the PC, they made changes or added stuff. That might have eventually came out on the Xbox that I never played. Who knows?
I don't think so. I think you just forgot.
It's possible. I mean, that politician mission, I swear, never existed before. I never encountered that before.
The guy who was...
Yeah, the advocate.
No, I've talked to him before.
I don't remember it, and I never blank that hard on stuff. Anyway, so we will get into that on the next episode and the episodes following.
I'm very skeptical with you.
Of what?
I never blink that hard.
I never forget things. Mine like a steel trap.
Oh, yeah. A rusted steel trap.
Wow. Ouch. You wound me.
Someone's gotta. Yeah, I have to organize all of my side quests into, like, one cohesive note.
Yeah, I think that the side quest and DLC section will focus mostly on the DLC, but we can discuss full paths of the side quests, because we did discuss some of them as we went.
Yeah.
But I think maybe a refresher on the additional things you could do and chatting about them is not a terrible thing.
Yeah. I don't really have a lot to say about this section overall.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Again, we're getting to the end of the game where I think a lot of the narrative built to this, so there's a lot less narrative, and this is more action at this point. I mean, the Citadel is being invaded. It's fairly action-packed. But yeah, I think that there's definitely a lot less choice and decision-making at this point in the game until we get to endgame.
There is one thing that I find very interesting, and that's every time you see a crate or a locker that has stuff in it, it's all, like, modern-day weapons and things like that.
Yeah.
And no Prothean stuff.
Oh, when you're on that
Yeah, when
planet.
you're on Ilos.
Yeah.
So, like, you unlock a crate, and I'm thinking, oh, yeah, some Prothean weapons. No, this is a gun that I already have.
Yeah.
Why is this here?
Yeah, that is definitely breaking the fourth wall and development. I mean, you could argue that...
the Geth brought it, I guess.
Well,
but how long have they been there that they needed to bring supplies and plant them around the planet?
I mean, considering... For me, at least, I did a whole other several missions before I went there. Who knows how long that really took. Time passing in this game, as we've discussed before, is a little nebulous.
Yeah, I have to look it up. I haven't really been thinking about it, but I'd love to know how much time actually passes.
Because it feels like not a lot, but on the same token, it feels like a lot. But again, we could say that the bonding would have happened regardless of time, because my understanding as someone who's never served in the military is that when you do serve in the military, you bond with the people around you pretty hard, pretty fast, because of the kinds of situations that you're in. So it could be more that than the actual time passing. But that said, this episode is probably a little on the shorter side because Ilos, again, is pretty condensed. It's funny. I feel like the last episode we did, the Citadel Lockdown, was shorter content-wise in the game, but we had more to say because a lot more narrative things happened there. There wasn't a lot of action in that part, whereas there's more action here and less narrative.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's nothing else really for me to talk about with the Mako. I think I've said all that I can say about that.
How do you feel about the Mako again?
Although, I will admit, on Ilos, it handles pretty well because you're in a straight path with no obstructions. But the minute you hit one uprooted tree, you flip and corkscrew because there's no physics in this game. Sometimes. Anyway.
Do you want to do reviews?
Yes.
Actually, no. I take it back.
Fine, take it back.
I do take it back. Fandom Corner.
Oh, right, of course.
Skipped over my own note. I want to share a fanfic that I super like. It's called The Effect of You by Quiet Gold on Archive of Our Own. I will link to that in the show notes. And I would like to read some of it. Why am I getting an ad?
Because free sites have ads.
How dare you?
Well, I mean...
Thank you.
We don't have ads yet, but we may at some point.
Anyway. She doesn't drive. She has a sweet bicycle that everyone calls the Normandy. The Normandy SR1, she says, because one day she'll have a car, and Normandy is just too damn good of a name to give up. So this is a teen AU about Shepard and Garrus, and I want to read a paragraph from the first chapter because I fell in love with it just starting. Grade 1. The first time he sees her, she's flying across the playground like a wild beast. She shouts and hollers and launches herself at Caden Alenko and takes him down with a cry of victory. Her hands are every which way, and Alenko shrieks as she musses his hair and smears dirt on his cheeks. And then she's running off, laughing as the teacher chases after her. Shepard! Garrus only stares, hoping that she never flies at him. So it's a very Very good fan fiction that takes place in an alternate universe where Shepard and Garrus are teenagers in high school. And it's about their friendship that eventually evolves. Tally has a fashion blog. It's wonderful. It's very cute.
I mean, you also like this kind of cute AU stuff.
I do. Other people do too.
I don't doubt it. It's just not my wheelhouse, but I will take your word on it that it is good.
Yeah.
And
I will link to it in the show notes. But you can find it on archiveofourown.org. Again, the title was The Effect of You by Quiet Gold. Let's see. Now we can do reviews.
All right. I have an iTunes review pulled up.
Oh, well, fine. I'll do Facebook then.
I should have warned you, I suppose.
Yeah, because I was about to open iTunes.
That's fine.
It's okay. I'm getting there. You go. I'll be there by the time you're there.
You might. So, actually, the funny thing is on the phone app, I can't see the full title of the review, but I think I know what it's saying. So the review is by Mediar Bellion.
Media Rebellion, maybe?
Media Rebellion. That makes way more sense. I don't know what I was looking for that. Look, there are no spaces. I've killed my co-host.
I can't breathe.
Yeah, I can tell.
Oh, I'm gonna die.
And see, if I were a savvy editor, I would edit this out, but I won't.
No, don't.
You're welcome. Media Rebellion writes, well, now I've got to play these games. And his review, I'm assuming, because I think I know who it is, I've been putting off this game for a while now. Now I got to play it. Thanks, Matt and MJ. You're welcome, Media Rebellion, or Mediar Bellion.
A.K.A. Ben Milton.
A.K.A. Ben Milton. Ben, thank you for the kind words. I hope you do finally play Mass Effect. I know that you're a huge fan of the Old Republic and other BioWare properties, and I think you would really dig Mass Effect, provided you can get past the shitty controls of the shooting stuff. Anyway.
I have a Facebook review from Josh Kostler. We've all played Mass Effect more times than is reasonable. Even one full playthrough, counting DLC, is a time dump approaching 90 hours. That said, Reignite is a thoughtful look at a thoughtful story. Putting the high-quality, entertaining podcast aside, which you should not do, following their playthrough on Facebook is a highlight of my social media day-to-day.
Thank you, Josh. Josh has been particularly vocal on a lot of our screenshots, which is always appreciated.
Mostly because he loves the Novaria stuff.
He does love the Novaria stuff, which, sure, okay. Yeah, I know. You're not a fan of Novaria.
No, I made that noise because I found out that today is Hoboken SantaCon, and that's why there were so many Santa Clauses on the train this morning.
I'm so sorry.
It's not that bad because I'm here today, but now I know why...
There were so many Santa Clauses. Yeah.
I love Christmas more than anything in the world, but I don't love SantaCon, and I think SantaCon is the worst.
Well, because SantaCon rewards rich, entitled, drunk white men. So, take that for what you want. And feel free to @me. I'm not going to... I stand by my statement.
Come at me on Twitter. No, don't come at me. I'm delicate and sensitive.
You are. It's true. As always, if you would like to have your review read on this podcast, then please write one. You can write one on iTunes or any podcasting platform that you use. You can also write a recommendation on Facebook. Those help us to get featured and discovered by your friends and coworkers and enemies, if you're friends with your enemies. So please write us a review. It helps us to get featured, and we love hearing from you guys.
You can find us on most social media platforms. We are on Twitter as Reignite Pod. We're on Instagram as Reignite Pod. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/Reignite Pod. You can email us, reignitepod@gmail.com. Am I missing?
Tumblr.
We're on Tumblr
also.
We're on Tumblr. I haven't logged into the Tumblr for a bit, but I'm constantly posting from Instagram.
Yeah, I mean, you can find our screenshots on any social media. Also, we have a Discord channel along with the rest of Certain Point of View. If you'd like to join our Discord, we have a pinned tweet and a pinned Facebook post on those respective social medias. You can just click the link. It never expires, and you can join us in the chat. Ian's been chatting with us quite a bit there, who is a listener. Thanks for that.
April just joined recently, too.
And April has also been chatting with us.
And I think I see my friend Tim lurking. I'm going to have to, at Tim.
I mean, you just called him out on the podcast, so if he's a listener, he'll now know that you've spotted his secret plan. But yes, please join the Discord. Of course, check out Certain Point of View, certainpov.com, where our brethren in the podcast space are Fun and Games Podcast, the Scruffy Nerf Herders, Another Pass with Casey Aiken, and of course the flagship Certain Point of View Podcast, which these days is about Star Wars, but day to day, who knows?
We also have a Redbubble. You can find us Reignite Pod on Redbubble, or you can search Reignite Logo if you want to see our stickers, shirts, skirts, clocks, notebooks. I'm just listing shit that has our logo on it.
Yeah, pretty much anything with our logo on it. And if you are an artist and would love to make us a toasted marshmallow kitten, we will create a t-shirt and figure out some way to compensate you and thank you.
I have an artist friend that I'm thinking of putting this in front of, but I'm not sure.
Of course, we are interested in commissions. We are looking for having artists recreate some of the moments, either from our screenshots or from the podcast. If you're interested in collaborating with us, please email us. We would love to hear from you. I'm always giddy to discover new artists who do really good work.
One other thing, just quickly before we go. In March, we're doing a live show at Dark Side of the Con. We brought it up a couple of times. We are doing vampires, Hunt or Be Hunted. We're going to devote half of the episode to talking about the Dawnguard DLC of Skyrim, because that gives us a lot of things that we can play with. We can decide which one of us will be a vampire and which one of us will be the hunter. But we're also going to talk about other narrative vampire games. If you have recommendations or suggestions, please email them to us or tweet them at us. We're happy to hear what kinds of games we should be looking at. Because we only have a couple of months and I need to kind of play some of them. So.
Yes. And those who have messaged us, we have seen your emails and tweets, and thank you. And we are taking the log. Yeah, we are taking a lot of things into consideration. Just so you know, listener, we're focused on games with strong narrative and narrative choices. You know, games like Blood Omen, which are great, don't have a lot of choice making. It's a lot of action and combat, which is great, but not really what we talk about here. And we'll engage with it a bit. You know, you can't talk about vampires in gaming and not talk about Castlevania. But for the most part, a lot of those games don't have a ton of choices. And so that's what why we're talking about Dawnguard and Skyrim in general, is because there are a lot of choices that affect how the game continues and how you interact with certain NPCs, and that's the kind of stuff we're looking for.
Okay. I think that's everything.
Thank you, as always, for listening. It's a blast doing this podcast. Oh, I do want to briefly mention, I will be appearing at MagFest this year in January, the first week of January, that first weekend. After New Year's is when the event is. It's a ton of great gaming and music events. I've never been before, and I'm excited to go. I will be joined by the majority of the Certain Point of View crew, because a lot of them are based out there. MJ is not going to be able to join us.
Well, I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's a few weeks away at this point.
I know. Well, what if I buy a last-minute ticket?
If you buy a last-minute ticket, you can travel with me. I'm going. But you'll have to take time off, and I'm going early because I'm staying with Case.
I'm on the fence because, like, work stuff. And, yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I made a decision and spent the money. But yeah, so MagFest is going to be really awesome. There are a ton of awesome nerdy musicians who will be there who I'm huge fans of that I never really get to see in person that I will finally get to. Also hoping to have a variety of Certain Point of View specials for all the podcasts, hopefully recording at least one of each kind of show with everybody on it to chat about things. Well, I don't know what you want from me. Don't worry, we can't do a Reignite episode. It wouldn't make sense unless we all talk about Mass Effect, and half those jackasses haven't played it yet. So,
what if you sit them down with the Mass Effect 3 multiplayer?
Oh God. Oh God. Anyway, that said, if you're going to MagFest, please check me out. Follow me on Twitter. That'll probably be the best way to reach me. But I would love to engage with you folk in person if you are there. With that said, I am Matt, aka Stormageddon.
We forgot something.
What?
Special thanks to our dear friend David Boyle and Dan Bull for letting us use Mass Effect Rap as our theme song. I'm MJ.
And I'm Matt, aka Stormageddon.
And this was our favorite podcast on the Citadel.
Mass Effect.
Every year, new TV shows get canceled. Some make it an entire season, and some don't even make it that far. I'm Ed, host of Unaired, where every other week, we review a show that was canceled with episodes left unaired, then pitch our ideas for what could have been future episodes of those shows. We've covered shows like Cavemen, the show based on the Geico Cavemen commercials, the ill-fated 2011 Wonder Woman pilot, a show called Look Well, where Adam West plays an aging TV detective who thinks he can solve real crimes, and many more. You can find us on iTunes, Google Play, unairedpodcast.com, or wherever you download podcasts. And remember, some things are better left unaired.